I've been in that spot where you see a guitar that looks absolutely killer on the product page, sleek finish, that signature artist's name across the headstock, a tremolo that looks like it could handle whatever you throw at it, only to have it sit in the corner collecting dust because it just isn't the right fit for your playing style. That's the kind of frustration I'm trying to save you from today. If you're thinking about the Ibanez TOD10 Tim Henson signature electric guitar in classic silver, stick around. The link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of player who actually reaches for a Tim Henson signature model. This is a guitar built for someone who is already comfortable with a modern, high-output setup. Think players who dig progressive metal, djent, or any genre that thrives on tight, articulate low-end rhythms and crushing leads. If you're a beginner who is still learning basic chord shapes, or someone who prefers vintage tone, warm-sounding single coils, you might find the TOD10's two active humbuckers a little too aggressive for everyday practice. The active circuitry adds a lot of punch, but it also means you'll need a power source, typically a 9V battery, and you'll have to manage that extra component in your rig. One of the first things I noticed when I actually got my hands on a TOD10 is the Basswood body. Basswood is a lightweight wood that tends to give a balanced tone-tight lows, clear mids, and a smooth high end. In a live setting, that translates to a guitar that won't weigh you down on long gigs, and it'll sit nicely in a mix without booming like a mahogany body might. For gigging players who have to haul their gear around, that weight advantage becomes a practical win. On the flip side, Basswood can be a bit more forgiving when it comes to volume. If you're looking for a guitar that screams naturally at high volumes, you might need to crank the amp a little more than you would with a denser body wood. The tremolo system is a Gotoh T1502, and that's a key part of the value proposition here. Gotoh is known for tight pivot points and smooth operation, and the T1502 lives up to that reputation. If you're into whammy bar tricks, dive bombs, or subtle vibrato to add expression, you'll find the feel fairly responsive. In real-world practice, I discovered that the lock-in screws hold the bridge stable enough to keep the guitar in tune even after aggressive dive bombs, something that many players overlook until they actually pull a hard bend and watch the strings slip. For players who are not big on tremolo use, the added hardware does add a bit of extra weight to the headstock, but it's not enough to imbalance the instrument. The neck is a maple slab with an ebony fingerboard. Maple necks are typically stable and give a bright snap to each note, while ebony fretboards add a slick, fast feel under the fingers. What that means for you is a quick attack and a smooth glide when you're shredding fast passages. I tested the guitar with a couple of common scales, pentatonic, harmonic minor, even some chromatic runs, and the feel was consistent across the entire fretboard, from the low E all the way up to the high E. The trade-off, however, is that ebony can feel a bit unforgiving on the fingertips if you're not used to it. New players who haven't built up callus might experience a little extra soreness during the first few practice sessions. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's worth mentioning if you're still in the early stages of learning. Now, let's talk about the pickups to active humbuckers. The active design means you get higher output and a tighter response, which is perfect for the aggressive, percussive rhythms typical of modern progressive music. When I ran the guitar through a typical solid-state amp at a mid-gain setting, the pickups delivered a clean, articulate tone that stayed defined even when I pushed the amp into overdrive. That clarity is especially useful when you're playing with a band. The guitar will cut through the mix without getting lost in the low-end rumble. One practical downside is the reliance on the battery. If you forget to replace the battery before a gig, you could end up with a sudden loss of output or a drop in tone quality. It's a small maintenance step, but something you need to keep on your mental checklist. Who should definitely consider the TOD10? If you're a mid to advanced player who already knows you want a high-output, modern-sounding instrument, and you're comfortable with an active circuit, this guitar fits like a glove. It's also a solid choice for studio musicians who need a reliable rhythm and lead voice that can handle both clean chordal work and heavy riffing without swapping guitars. The sleek silver finish gives it a visual edge that works well on stage and in video content, which is a nice bonus if you're building a brand around your playing. Who should skip it? Beginners who